Go support Kenshi 618. Chapter 12, The Gentle Art of Making Enemies. With Naruto and Urachi, Arctic Circle. Once again, roughly a week and a half after their excursion to Hueco Mundo, Naruto dragged Urachi away from Karakura town for company as he traversed the globe for his own personal reasons that he wasn't very forthcoming with, and the cat-like female was of course as curious as ever as to where Naruto was taking her, so she didn't argue too much. So far they had gotten on 2 planes, had flown out of Tokyo, had completely left Japan altogether, had wound up in Canada of all places, and had gotten all geared up. Geared up for what, you ask? Well, from the northernmost point of Saskatchewan they headed into the Northwest Territories and then further north into Nunavut by the Arctic Circle. Luckily for them it was still summer, but it was still cold as hell, seeing as how the season was about to turn. Once again, Urachi had to wonder how much money Naruto actually had, because he seemingly doled out the cash for their little spur-of-the-moment trip like it was nothing, as if he were merely paying for bus fare to head downtown. He even handed her a passport like he had handed her a permission slip for a school field trip. Naruto. Urachi managed to growl out. She was really getting tired of following her fearless leader. Despite her having almost infinitesimally more knowledge than him about the Soul Society, he had an almost inexhaustible amount of knowledge about every single nook and cranny of the globe and the world of the living that was worth talking about. I've been very patient. I've followed you all the way out here without asking you too much, but now you have me out here in the middle of nowhere on an outlying island, so far away from any town that we haven't even seen a human being in several hours, and since when can you speak that language you were speaking? Inuktitut. Naruto supplied helpfully, looking at his lovely female companion with a smile. They were both wearing white parkas and white boots. Urachi had her hood pulled up. Naruto didn't think he needed it, so he didn't have it on. They had been walking for hours, with the only sound other than the two trying to talk to one another being the sound of snow and ice crunching under their boots. I learned to speak the languages of the places where I was hiding stuff, Urachi-chan. It would really suck to overhear someone talking about finding one of my hideaways and not know what they were saying. Not that anyone could even find one of my places. Only a ninja could, and there aren't any of them like me these days. Why didn't we take Haiden? Urachi asked him, wrinkling her nose as powdered snow flurries flew into her face with the blowing of the wind. Because he would be so bored he wouldn't know what to do with himself, and he would just ditch us to go straight to Hueco Mundo once he realized we wouldn't be fighting. Naruto answered, casually as he continued to lead her along. Besides, someone needed to keep watch over the base, and Urahara was going to install one of those kick-ass training fields in the basement. He just had one request before he got to work on it. XXX. Karakura Town, Urahara shop. Haiden had come over to Urahara's shop to help him out due to them being comrades for whatever Naruto's little squad were meant to be used for, also because of the promises by the man that he would be fed very well, and he was sick of eating nothing but ramen. Naruto had been the one to go grocery shopping and fill the cabinets and refrigerator, while he waited for Naruto and Urachi to come back. In his human jigai, Haiden sat in the middle of a binding array with a bored look on his face. Tessai had a fully focused look on his face as if he were preparing to hold Haiden back from breaking away or attacking. The silver-haired former ninja gave him a deadpan look. You know, Muscles, if I wanted to fucking kill you I would have just done it by now. I'm not going to do anything to you or the bucket hat guy. Uzumaki would bind me back to some kind of holy land for all eternity again if I did. Sorry, Haiden-san. Tessai said, actually apologetic to the hollow inhuman form. This is a precaution. Urahara-san requires you to be in your Arankar form so that he can study you and learn more about the process. The information he got from your Vasto Lord form was invaluable and we're still studying it. However, an Arankar is something we have never gotten an opportunity to go over before. Okay. Haiden said, not getting it yet. I still don't understand why I have to be bound for this. He barely noticed Urahara walk up to him and tap him on the head with the bottom of his cane, freeing his Arankar form, still wearing his black robe with red clouds, from the jigai before he dragged it away to a safe distance. We're just going to test some things out on you, Haiden. Urahara said, walking back over, spinning his cane as Tessai activated the small barrier around Haiden's body. The barrier is just in case it's needed, he said before smashing Haiden hard on the head with his cane. Haiden's head didn't even flinch, didn't hurt. Iero, steel skin. One of the few techniques I was able to glean from those 3 bitches that were telling me all about what Arankar could do. A grin came to his face. With my spiritual pressure you ain't gonna be able to hurt me with that weak piece of shit. Good to know. Urahara said in a mildly chilling manner, smiling in an unnerving fashion, "It seems that we can step it up a bit here in testing things out on you." He drew his Zanpakuto from within his cane. "A word of warning before we get started, my Zanpakuto didn't really like being called a weak piece of shit, so I'm sorry in advance for this. Okiro, Beneheim, awaken, Crimson Princess." The Zanpakuto changed into a sleek-looking medium-sized sword with a strange bend in the handle that had a tassel at the end. It was a rather unique-looking weapon, Haiden had to say, but then again he had only seen Yoruichi, he didn't know anything about Shinigami or their Zanpakuto. "What are you going to do with that?" Haiden asked amusedly. "Slice me up some bread and make me a sandwich? Make it roast beef if you are." "Yeah," Urahara said before clicking his teeth in a pitying fashion. She didn't really like that remark either, so I'm sorry for this. You should be fine though, a little dinged up, but alive nonetheless. Maybe. Haiden's eyes widened as he saw the blade of the sword glow red. First test, Card durability in varying situations of intensity. Nake, Beneheim, Sing, Crimson Princess. Wait, what? Haiden managed to get out before Urahara slashed a blade of red energy at him that exploded on contact, engulfing the entire area around him in smoke. Ow. God damn it, that fucking hurt, you creepy bastard. You're lucky I was able to get the scythe up to block that shit. Good to know. Urahara said in a mildly chilling manner, smiling in an unnerving fashion. "It seems that we can step it up a bit here in testing things out on you." He drew his Zanpakuto from within his cane. "A word of warning before we get started, my Zanpakuto didn't really like being called a weak piece of shit, so I'm sorry in advance for this. Okiro, Beneheim, awaken, Crimson Princess." The Zanpakuto changed into a sleek-looking medium-sized sword with a strange bend in the handle that had a tassel at the end. It was a rather unique-looking weapon, Haiden had to say, but then again he had only seen Yoruichi, he didn't know anything about Shinigami or their Zanpakuto. "What are you going to do with that?" Haiden asked amusedly. "Slice me up some bread and make me a sandwich? Make it roast beef if you are." "Yeah," Urahara said before clicking his teeth in a pitying fashion. She didn't really like that remark either, so I'm sorry for this. You should be fine though, a little dinged up, but alive nonetheless. Maybe. Haiden's eyes widened as he saw the blade of the sword glow red. First test, Card durability in varying situations of intensity. Nake, Beneheim, Sing, Crimson Princess. Wait, what? Haiden managed to get out before Urahara slashed a blade of red energy at him that exploded on contact, engulfing the entire area around him in smoke. Ow. God damn it, that fucking hurt, you creepy bastard. You're lucky I was able to get the scythe up to block that shit. Urahara said, pulling out a clipboard from nowhere and writing things down. "The test subject seems alive and well for having taken a low-level blast from Beneheim. I'd better up the intensity of the attack, or maybe have him take the hit without using his weapon to try and divert some of the impact." He shrugged and smiled. "Oh well, we have all the time in the world to run trials, and it looks like we won't have to immediately get him medical treatment after every attempt. Consider it training for your Yero Haiden. Go fuck yourself with your old man cane sword." Haiden yelled back at him. XXX. With Naruto and Yoruichi. Yeah, Naruto thought, rubbing under his nose with a grin on his face. Haiden should be able to take some of that. He's a tough guy. Yoruichi shook her head in amusement before asking another question. "Okay, so what are we doing out here? This isn't exactly the most romantic place to take a girl for a vacation, Naruto," she said jokingly, batting her eyelashes at him sweetly. He shot his grin over to her. "You've obviously never been up around the Arctic Circle and seen the Aurora Borealis. Maybe I'll bring you back and see if you say that then." The blonde then stroked his chin. "I guess if you want to that badly I can take you somewhere on the way back. We can stop off somewhere. Can you speak any other languages, or do I have to teach you before we go anywhere cool?" Yoruichi smiled at him like a woman with a devious plan. "Why don't we save the sweet talk for later and you tell me why I'm out here freezing my tail off right now?" "Fair enough," he said to her in agreement. "All over the world I have stashed things. Cool things. Treasures of my era that I managed to get a hold of." Yoruichi blinked. "Are we going to go see that Gedamazu thing you told me about with all of the monsters in it?" She saw him double take at her in shock. "Fuck no," Naruto said in alarm. "The less people who know exactly where that is, the better it is for everyone. It's in a place that only I can reach anyway. No, these are more like armories. I have a lot of weapons of a powerful nature and we're heading towards the one that I want the most right now. And don't complain about where I placed it. The rest aren't in places that are any easier to get to. Most of them are harder to get to, and more of a pain in the ass to find." Yorichi noticed that by this time Naruto had turned on his Rinnegan for some reason as they walked along. So what exactly are we looking for again? Something cool. Naruto alluded to cryptically that got Yorichi to pout at not getting her curiosity sated. It's one of my favorite old tools. I liked it so much that I couldn't keep it locked away like most of the others. I got it fixed and upgraded actually and learned how to use it for myself, then I hid it. But you Shinigami have your Zanpakuto, so I need a little something extra with some knockout power so to speak. Hence, I'm coming to retrieve my sword since the stronger of you guys can just cut through my kunai and hidden blades like they're cheap. A smirk came to the face of Yorichi at hearing how disgruntled he was at discovering the limits of his ninja tools when it came to melee attacks against Shinigami, well when you compare them to soul-cutting swords they are cheap Naruto. Hopefully what you've dragged me out here to find isn't that easy to break. No way Yorichi-chan. He said to her as they started climbing a gentle slope, by the way, we're almost there. He then simply stopped in the middle of nowhere. Nothing around at all to indicate that anything was anywhere near them. Folding her arms across her chest, Yorichi looked around expectantly. She was prepared to see some elaborate, guarded shrine of some sort, so where is this important weapon of yours? There's nothing here. Look underneath Yorichi-chan. Naruto remarked to her as he started making hand seals, ending with him clapping his hands together and stomping his foot on the ground, releasing a small tremor. In front of them the ice cracked and a stone pillar with a tablet on it rose through. Naruto drew a kunai and cut his palm, coating it completely in his own blood before slamming it onto the tablet and forcing it back down below the surface. A whirlpool formation started forming in front of them through the snow, ice, and ground, spinning and forming a large crater, eventually stopping when a small person-sized hole opened up in the center of it. Naruto gestured for Yorichi to follow him, getting a confused tilt of an eyebrow from her, but she followed nonetheless. The hole in the ground led through an extremely narrow passage that had been coated over with permafrost, but other than that little natural occurrence it was actually well built and sturdy. As they entered a main chamber it was like the entire room was made out of hollowed-out ice. Shelves on the back wall were stacked with scrolls that Naruto wasted no time in reading the kanji for and taking a few for himself. These are just regular ninja tools. Kunai, shuriken, stuff like that. I didn't have any until we headed to the Soul Society where apparently blacksmiths aren't out of practice like most are here. Nodding, Yorichi looked around. The place was beautiful. Did you make this place? How did you even find it outside? Everything looked the same. Come to think of it I did sense a mild amount of Ryuryoko when we started getting closer to this place. Yorichi commented. It had been strange, there shouldn't have been any kind of spiritual energy out there at all, even the tiny amount she could feel. Yep. Naruto said as he looked at a sleek black box that was attached to the pedestal. What better place to hide something away from people than in the middle of fucking nowhere, with absolutely no indicators as to anything being hidden? I have about 12 different places like this. He bit his thumb and coated the tips of his fingers in blood before pressing them onto the box and pulling them away to make a long chain of hand seals. Walking over to him and the box, Yorichi smirked at seeing what Naruto was doing. You certainly have one hell of a security system for a world without ninjas. Naruto rolled his eyes with a good-natured smile on his face as he continued his hand seals. You've seen TV and the news. Archaeologists find shit like my place all the time. On the off chance someone does discover this place, they won't be able to take a single thing I have for themselves without the ability to use chakra or the knowledge of my security code to open the cases for my real weapons. He finished his hand seals and placed his hand back on the box, getting a satisfying click for his troubles. As he opened the box, Yorichi looked at it intently to see what treasure Naruto had brought them out to the ass end of nowhere to retrieve. Upon the box being fully opened, all that lay inside, sitting on an ornate velvety cushion of sorts, was the hilt of a sword that ended in a cross guard. The dark-skinned noble's eye twitched at seeing it. That's it? That's it. Naruto confirmed, happily picking up the hilt and placing it in his pocket before leaving the hiding place, whistling a happy tune to himself that echoed through the chamber and the tunnel. Yorichi palmed her face and followed him out. You dragged me halfway across the world for the hilt of a sword? Yep. Is there a blade to it that you've got to go somewhere else to in order to find it? You know, so that no one else but you could ever use the sword even if they found one part? Nope. Yorichi was radiating pure displeasure as she watched Naruto close the whirlpool crater back up, leaving the area looking like they had never been there with the exception of their footprints that would soon be covered up. So it's purely for sentimental value or something? Naruto scoffed. Hell no. This is a mission based on pure practicality, dear. He said, fishing the hilt back out of the pocket. He chuckled when he saw Yorichi glare hatefully at it, thinking that their time and effort had been for nothing in particular. This is one of the coolest things that I own. It looks like junk, she said, still not convinced in the least that this trip was even the least bit productive. Yeah, whatever. Naruto grumbled rather irritably before holding the hilt out in front of her indifferent face. This is the Raijin no Ken, sword of the Thunder God, and you'd better recognize and respect my archaic swag. After yelling that, a long blade with bright yellow energy just pouring from it, making it glow brightly, emerged from the hilt, almost getting Yorichi to recoil in surprise. The force is with me, Databeo. What the hell is that thing? Yorichi said in response, rubbing her eyes at being damn near blinded by Naruto's unassuming weapon. Was that electricity? Naruto twirled it around in his hand a few times in a way that he found himself getting refamiliarized with wielding it. Yes, it was. This sword is infused with pure electrical energy and could work as its own power source with the perpetual amount of juice it churns out. It seriously fucking hurts too, even when you're not being cut with it. Just touching this thing sucks. Getting the stars from nearly being blinded out of her eyes, Yorichi then fully took notice of the sword. You said you reforged it? I had it reforged, yeah, Naruto said, turning it down and returning it to its hilt form. It really wasn't made any better than any other sword I had seen before. Other than the electricity thing, there wasn't too much special about it. I even broke it before, me and Sasuke. I had to get it redone with the best metal I could possibly find, and now it's not only way tougher, I can do all sorts of cool things with it. He then turned a short look towards her. Where's your Zanpakuto? I've never even seen it before. She waved that little question off effortlessly. I don't like using it that much, so I just don't. I was a captain though, so be assured that I have one and it's just as powerful as any other. Naruto nodded. I never implied that it wasn't, I just wanted to know why you never seemed to have it on you. It's not like you really need it anyway. He then looked at the hilt of the Raijin no Ken and grinned at it. I missed you, my super sweet sword. Those Shinigami are going to piss their pants when they see what I upgraded you to do. After getting over the surprise of his weapon, Yorichi smiled at him. He seems so excited just because he has his old weapon back. It doesn't really take much to make Naruto happy, does it? But I guess that after the story he told me, he has to take every bit of pleasure from life he can get, with as long as it is and with everything he had to and still has to do. She then snapped back to reality when she realized that Naruto had been asking her something. Huh? I'm sorry, could you say that again? She gave him a look of mild distrust. And you'll take me anywhere I want to go? Anywhere at all, Naruto said, confirming it firsthand. Just tell me where and I'll take you anywhere. We'll do whatever you want. Money is literally no object, and you'd be worth it. We might not get a chance to until after everything settles down and my team is all set up for the moment, but I've got all the time in the world. I'll hold you to that, Yorichi said in a voice that relayed her satisfaction with the terms given to her as they continued to walk back to civilization. XXX. 3 days later, Karakura Town, Urahara shop. Here you are, Mr. Haiden. Urura said meekly, handing Haiden, who was back in his jigai with bandages all over random points on his body, a cup of tea. The newly turned Arankar accepted the tea with an irritable grunt as he stared across the table at Urahara, who had his clipboard out and was writing notes again. So you say that pulling your mask off turned you into an Arankar? He asked Haiden, who grunted in affirmation, though he was still glaring at him heatedly. Still, you're extremely strong for an Arankar, or so I've heard. A hollow with powers reminiscent of a Shinigami. He said with a serious inflection. So it wasn't enough for you to ruin all of those lives 110 years ago, was it, Aizen? You used the Hogyoku to make your own army. What the hell do you think you're doing, Aizen? He was snapped out of thinking for himself when Haiden spoke up rather irritably. So after the little torture session that you called tests, are you going to hurry up and build that training room in the basement of our base? I need to start getting my powers down. Oh yeah, sure. Urahara said, getting back to his normal airhead personality. I'll start installing it later today. Thanks for all the help, and for not trying to kill me once I was done studying your Arankar form. Haiden stared at the cane resting near the table. That Zanpakuto, it's an evil weapon of mass destruction. And you say that every Shinigami has one? He shook his head and took a sip of his tea. Yeah, I'm really glad I'm on Uzumaki's side now. Fighting you and yours would be more trouble than it seems to be worth, even for the glory of Jashin-sama. He then thought of something. Oh, by the way, Uzumaki called the base and told me he found what he left to go get. He and the sexy lady with him should be back later in the week. Urahara pulled out his fan and held it in front of his face. Oh, well, that's good. Because I was contacted by Yamamoto and there's something that Uzumaki-san is going to want to know that's about to go down. Hayden stared at the Shinigami scientist before smirking. Is it the kind of something that will piss him off? Urahara made a thoughtful noise before responding. I wouldn't say so. I would say that it's the kind of something that would make his life more difficult for the time being. It might make him angry depending on how he feels about it. Thought. Hayden shrugged. Meh, it's better than nothing I guess. He said before downing the rest of his tea. Could you get that little girl back in here to get me a refill? I've got a man's thirst here. I never want to see your damn Zanpakuto's release ever again. XXX. With Naruto and Yoruichi. The layover from their flight out of Canada back to Japan stopped late over in Hawaii, thus Naruto got Yoruichi and himself a place to stay for the night. There was also no real rush now that he had what he had left Karakura town to find, so as long as they got back in a good amount of time there wasn't anything anyone could say about anything. Grateful to be out of the Arctic Circle and in a more enjoyable climate, Yoruichi, in a loose violet shirt and black skirt, stretched out on the bed of the hotel suite that Naruto had bought out for them, looking out of a rather large window that led to a balcony. For only staying for one night, he certainly didn't spare any expense. He had swiftly asked if anyone had booked the best suite they had, and when he was informed that no one had, he had quickly snatched it up for them. Where do you get all of this money from? Yoruichi asked the blonde man near the bed, who was raiding the mini-fridge without a care. Your books couldn't possibly sell that well. That money would really be no object like this. Naruto looked up from the fridge quizzically with a bottle of water sticking out of his mouth. Pulling the beverage away he blinked and addressed her question. Well yeah, my books really do sell that much. No joke. And I transfer money to new accounts for every normal lifetime I've lived. Then that account makes money, and then you've got to account for all of the interest I've accumulated too. There isn't any reason that I wouldn't be totally loaded, especially since I don't use that much money at all. He then grinned at her. But you're so worth it, Yoruichi-chan. Ah. Yoruichi said playfully, reaching over and giving Naruto's cheek a pinch. You're so sweet to me, Naruto. She then blinked and decided to ask a question. Why are you so sweet? Not just to me, but to every girl you meet? It's not just because you're a womanizer, it doesn't seem that simple. Naruto averted his eyes away from her and returned to digging through the fridge. A woman brought me into the world and gave her life for me. I've had my life saved more times than I can count by women. I've had my ass handed to me more times than I can count by women. And a woman even brought me back from the goddamn dead and gave me a chance to correct my ultimate mistake. Because of those reasons I treasure all women, not just for physical reasons, but because I've experienced both ends of the spectrum. You are capable of being bona fide angels of mercy, and merciless destroyers. He finished with a smile. Any girl that thinks that giving me the time of day is worth her while ends up being special to me. It's amazing that you didn't grow bitter and angry with time. You're just one big softie despite all of the idiocy and power, aren't you? Yoruichi rolled over onto her back and let out a yawn. I think jet lag is just a myth. The changing time zones didn't mean anything to me. I'm so tired. Get some sleep then. Naruto said, standing up from his crouch by the mini-fridge to leave the room. I'll hit the couch in the other room and I'll see you in the morning. Yoruichi rolled her eyes as she jumped out of bed and grabbed a hold of his arm. Oh, don't start acting like a prude now. You've slept in the same place as me before, and this time there's no one here. You're not going to be dropping all of that money just so you can sleep on a chair somewhere. Naruto looked back at her before smirking and walking towards her, getting her to back up slowly. So you don't want me to leave? He said lowly, getting a matching smirk from Yoruichi, who shook her head. Now why would that be? You paid for this place, she said, letting him wrap an arm around her waist and pull her close to him, and I think I'm getting used to sleeping on top of you. I don't think I could get to sleep in such a foreign place without an immortal pillow. She turned her golden-colored eyes up at him and gave him a quivering-eyed look. Or would you really make me sleep all by myself? He had to avert his eyes away from hers. Even after more years than anyone could count, he was still a sucker for anything that a girl close to him requested of him. Not that he would have even turned her down for something like this anyway. XXX. 2 hours later. So what's the next plan? Yoruichi asked Naruto, laying her head on his bare chest. Each time they slept together they had been getting progressively closer and closer to one another, so much so that now neither of them could care less about the other sleeping in their undergarments. When we get back to Karakura, what are we going to do? Naruto sighed, watching the purple hair of Yoruichi raise and fall along with his chest. First and foremost we need to get you an office space, then Hayden needs to get himself used to whatever he can do as an errand car, or else he wouldn't be as useful as he could be otherwise. Even if all he used was his Jigai and his ninjutsu, he wouldn't be much of a match for anything stronger than regular hollows. His Jigai body doesn't have enough chakra for him to readily use any yet. It would take years for him to get back up to speed with that. Yorichi nodded in agreement. It was clear that Haiden had a lot of power, but he needed to know how to use it, otherwise it was all but useless to them. So what are we going to do about Hueco Mundo? We have two options. Naruto said, we could go back in and try to get more information on the place because we don't have much at all right now. We might even be able to launch a preemptive strike if we get our bearings fast enough, or we can wait for something to happen in the world of the living. I have some things that need doing around Karakura town anyway, and having too much on my plate at once wouldn't exactly be the best thing. He looked down at the woman laying on his chest. You, on the other hand, are going to help me scout for more people. I've seen your Shinigami divisions. 4 or 5 people does not make a very deep and comprehensive group. And if there's anyone in particular I like and think we should have? She wondered, looking up at him with an expression reminiscent of a cat that had just swallowed the canary. Naruto chuckled at the look on her face. Then you can tell me about them and we can see if they're up to snuff and interested in joining. He then rolled his eyes. You still want all of Ichigo's friends, don't you? I'm telling you they won't do it unless he joins, and he won't. Scratching the top of his head, he added something onto that, and besides, I have to steer him towards Shinji and the other Vizards. It's too dangerous to leave him to roam and fight without him knowing about his hollow. I kind of want to slap Urahara again for doing that. This is his fault, he said in a rather irritable manner before Yorichi's mouth covered his. The female companion of the immortal Uzumaki pulled away after a moment and placed a finger on his nose. Don't blame Kasuke. Ichigo will be able to handle it. Just do what you need to when school gets back into session. He grumbled about going to school again, getting Yorichi to giggle and kiss him again. It's a good cover and you know it. Maybe you can actually get Ichigo to trust you because he still doesn't. Yorichi let off a seductive laugh and pushed her forehead and nose against Naruto's. Oh, you stole me away, did you? So does that mean that when I'm telling you stuff you need to know about the Soul Society or things in general you'll call me Yorichi-sensei? She basically purred out to him. Only if when I buy you stuff and do awesome things you'll call me Naruto-sama. Naruto fired back in a low voice that could match hers. You really want to do this, Yorichi-chan? You're really towing it close to that line of no return. She grinned at his question. Oh well, in that case, if you're that worried about me second-guessing myself, I could just get up and get dressed and we can ignore dash dot. She let out a muffled laugh when Naruto cut her off by kissing her again. Eventually she simply closed her eyes and enjoyed it as she started to duel tongues with the blonde shinobi beneath her. There's a lemon here if you want to read it. To read True Warriors Never Die Chapter 12 by Kenshi 618. XXX. 3 days later, Karakura Town. After returning to Karakura Town, Naruto was visited by Urahara in regards to what he had found out about Haiden and Arrancar in general. If this was what they were to be fighting, he decided that studying the enemy now instead of waiting until later would be for the best all around. Haiden stood in the training room that Urahara had somehow carved out while Naruto and Yorichi were gone, while Urahara stood in front of him, a clear see-through board in front of the Arrancar with certain places on his anatomy circled on the board and labeled. The scientist had a long pointer as he gestured towards Haiden as if he were conducting a lecture. Okay, Haiden here, as we all know, is the Shinigami Hollow known as an Arrancar. Duh. Naruto, Yorichi, all of Urahara's assistants, and even Haiden behind the clear board said simultaneously before Yorichi continued, we already knew that, Kasuke. I don't even know why that required repeating. With his fan out in front of his face he turned towards Yorichi, a gleam in his eye. Well. Unless you're willing to tell us what you were up to with Uzumaki-san while you were gone, I would suggest that you let me finish. What? She said in reply, doing a valiant job of keeping her blush non-existent while Naruto had a huge smirk on his face at her side. We just went to get a weapon for him that he had hidden. Haiden smirked and shared a look with Urahara. Yeah, I'm sure he hid his weapon all right. Both men started laughing until they felt Yorichi's Ryatsu spike threateningly. Okay, bucket hat, back to explaining this shit. I agree. Urahara said hurriedly before smacking the board with his pointer. Now, Arrancar are able to fire Blasts just like regular hollows are able to, and from what we have seen of Haiden, he also has the hole on his body that is the telltale sign that he's still a hollow. Apparently the hollow that transforms into an Arrancar must be of staggering power for the change to even provide a relevant amount of challenge. Minos or higher. Naruto raised his hand like they were in class. What about how he's wired? He got questioning looks from everyone around him. Well, I'm just saying, when Haiden was a Vasto Lord he seemed was more bloodthirsty, even for his normal personality. "How many times did you go into Hueco Mundo when I was gone?" he asked the silver-haired ex-shinobi. Haydn held up one finger, "Just once for like an hour or two to get to combat training in with the stuff I felt like working on." Vasto Lord Haydn would have been chomping at the bit to just stay in there. Yorichi pointed out. "About that." Urahara continued, pointing towards Haydn's head, smacking the pointer off of the board repeatedly to annoy him. "Arankar share a similar anatomy to that of Shinigami. Everything is where it would be for a Shinigami. His Seketsu, soul chain, and Hakusui, soul sleep, are in the same places, and his mental capacities aren't naturally fueled by battle and killing the way other hollows are." Haydn stopped him to point something out. "Actually, yeah, they are, but like I said, I'm so used to it all of the fucking time, even back when I was alive. It's like a little tickle in the back of my head every so often. But I know how to adhere to standards, so it's cool. I won't kill any of you," he said with a rather dark grin that made the kids, Yururu and Jinta, shiver somewhat. Urahara tapped the board repeatedly to get attention back on him. "Now the most interesting thing I've found by far in the time I've been studying the results from the things I've done to Haydn are the other powers that they have. An Arankar possesses the power to harden their skin by compressing their spiritual pressure. The stronger they are, the better the defense is." He then sniffed haughtily. "It's still by no means impenetrable though. Stop preening and get back to the explanation before I shove those sandals up your ass." Haydn growled out irritably. "Era, don't be so bloodthirsty," Urahara said brightly before doing just as instructed. "Now the powers, as I said, are incredibly interesting. Our resident Arankar here has the potential to mimic the Shinigami use of Shuinpa and other Hoho skills in his own way with enough work. In addition to that, he has variants of the Zero that he may or may not be able to use if he had the ingenuity and training to do so. But that's not even the most interesting thing." He tapped on the clear board around Haydn's hands. "These are," Haydn said with a grin, holding up his three-bladed scythe in one hand and his strange cylindrical device in the other. "Exactly," Urahara said in confirmation as he seemed rather excited or shaken by what he was about to say to them. "These two weapons are Haydn's Zanpakuto." Yorichi gave him an utterly stunned look that didn't fail to satisfy him. "Yes, I'm certain before you even start asking. The bulk of Haydn's Ryuryoku are sealed within these two weapons, much like a sealed Zanpakuto." "So," Jinta said, trying to get his question out the right way, "these Arankar things have Shurkai and Bankai just like a Shinigami would have?" "Oh no." Urahara began to laugh, calming some of them down somewhat, until he suddenly stopped and got a serious look on his face. "The form that Haydn's weapons and by proxy any other Arankar's weapon are in at all normal times are their Shurkai. He does have the equivalent of a Bankai, however, though I have yet to know what that is. All Arankar possess this ability. Except me," Haydn said with a twitching eye. "Bastards." Urahara turned towards him. "You'll find yours very soon, we'll help you figure it out." Naruto then started thinking of his own run-in with an Arankar back in the forest of Minos. "So that woman we met that was so strong, she can get even stronger?" he said, sharing a look with Yorichi before he shrugged. "I should have known. No one I ever meet is as strong as they can be the first time I see them." He gestured towards the female Shinigami and exclaimed, "You see what I was talking about, Haydn? I swear, it's like a total theme in my life to be close to women that can beat the shit out of me." "I'm starting to get that picture," he replied, nodding sagely. Naruto then stood up abruptly and walked over to Urahara. "Oh, by the way, Haydn needs a way to get out of his jigai, so I brought you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a scroll that he unsealed. "These." Haydn let out an almost girlish shriek when he saw what Naruto brought. "You got my scythe and pike back." And brought them back he did. However, from the rust and the broken blades it certainly seemed like Father Time had taken a sledgehammer to them. "What the fuck happened to them?" Naruto gave Haydn a dry look. "It's been buried for over 2,000 years, what the fuck did you expect them to look like? At least the pike can be fixed. I don't know anyone good enough to fix the scythe up." Urahara picked up the pike and retracted it, noticing it looked just like the cylinder that Haydn had as an Arankar, as did the scythe. "This is all I need to give Haydn something to get him out of his jigai. I'll even get it all fixed up for you." He looked over at Naruto expectantly, for a nominal fee. Rolling his eyes, Naruto relented. "Fine, you get the next book set to be released, signed copy." Urahara let out a cheer while Haydn got back into his jigai and stretched back out. The informal meeting had begun to break down and everyone had been prepared to go off on their own business when something hit Naruto mentally and his eyes widened. "Uh-oh." he said before damn near sprinting from the training room underneath the office building his base was located in and rushing to the front gate. XXX. Stopping outside, he whipped his head around rapidly. Naruto knew that he hadn't been wrong about what he assumed he had seen. His Kage Bunshin sentry wouldn't have dispelled itself by punching itself in the back of the head, and what it had seen before its untimely demise hadn't been fabricated because it was an actual memory, so where in the hell would Dash? He said before he disappeared in a puff of smoke. Damn it. Stupid, slow Jigai. Soifan said to herself, remembering his Kage Bunshin technique before she found herself picked up from behind in a huge hug that kept her arms bound. I knew I wasn't crazy. Naruto said happily as he held Soifan off of the ground close to his chest, ignoring her angrily kicking feet and shouts to let her go. Hello my sweet Jibachi. Did you miss me? Like a beating from Dash. She was about to answer with a snide comment until she registered what she heard him call her. Wait, Jibachi, Queen Bee? Why are you calling me that now? Soifan asked, stopping her legs from kicking. Naruto shrugged, still not letting go of her. I don't know. You told me not to call you my little bee anymore, so I had to come up with something, didn't I? He then realized where she was. Now what are you doing here? Did you come to visit Yurichi-chan? He gave her a grin, or me? Soifan tried to cover the flustered look on her face as her legs began kicking again, trying to force him to let her go, still as agitating as ever Uzumaki. She managed to growl, let me go and I'll tell you why I'm here. He immediately dropped her, and once she landed on her feet she turned around and punched him hard in the stomach. When he didn't double over like he usually did she looked up at his grinning face wondering why. You don't use Jigai very much, do you? Naruto said to her, voice full of amusement as she glared up at him. You don't get it, you're as weak as a regular human girl right now as long as you're in that thing. You could hit me all day and I wouldn't blink. The body I fought with in the Soul Society was my real body that I always use in this world, so I'm always as tough as nails. Now why are here at my humble office? Soifan's glare dissipated and Naruto took in her appearance in her Jigai. She wore a black shoulder-cut long-sleeved shirt, tight blue jeans that stopped low at her calf, and sandals. She certainly didn't have any trouble fitting in with normal people in the world of the living. We're here as the support force for you and your unit, as Yamamoto Sotaisha hadn't figured that you had finished putting it together yet. We? Naruto repeated questioningly until Soifan snapped her fingers. Can we come out now, Taicho? From around the corner of the building, Omida poked his head out along with Nimue. Soifan rolled her eyes. Yes, you can come out now. I didn't kill Uzumaki, this time, she said, getting a sweat drop out of Naruto. Shrugging, Omida walked from around the corner wearing a black suit that managed to fit his sizable frame. He also had a pair of black sunglasses on his face. Nimue had on a gray button-up blouse and still had on her red choker along with a yellow tight skirt and black high-heeled sandals. Naruto scratched his hair as the two lieutenants walked over. I can understand your lieutenant being here, but why is Nimue-chan here? Soifan shook her head. I have no clue. Omida and myself are here because as members of the Onmitsukudo we can carry out this glorified scouting mission, just the two of us, especially with you and Yorichi-sama here as well. She gestured towards Nimue. I assume she is here because of a need to analyze and study the findings of Hueco Mundo. It isn't really a place that Shinigami readily go to as there isn't really a way out, until now. It sounded appropriate enough to Naruto. He had heard of far worse reasons for other things than that in his time. With that being over with and done, Naruto turned and led them inside of the building. Well then let's find you guys a place to stay while we're here. We can work out a mission plan later. As they walked inside and saw the place had been restored to a very nice atmosphere with neatly painted walls, colored maroon on the first floor. However, there wasn't anything in the wide open area which brought Soifan to scoff. You'd better not have Yorichi-sama staying here, she said, believing her mistress should have more appropriate accommodations to her stature. Naruto looked rather offended. Hey, it's not bad, I haven't come up with a front for the place yet, that's why it's empty down here, but I'm thinking about it. You haven't even seen the upper floors yet. It's better than Urahara's place, that's for damn sure. He liked his little purchase. Whatever, let's just set you guys up with a place to stay while you're here. Well, at least he had some support now. Yamamoto followed through on that front. He could head back into Hueco Mundo now while he had Yorichi try to bolster his ranks. Maybe she could get Chad, Oraheim, or maybe Ichigo to join up. He doubted it, but it was worth a try.